Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond that, they're binary, welcome to the Money Discourse for today, June 28th, 2021. We're almost at the end of June. How bananas is that? I'm your host, Tristan. I am the person who runs Step Back and Tristan Won't Shut Up. I stream 2 days a week, on Mondays and Tuesdays. On Mondays, I stream from 12 till 2, and on Tuesdays, I stream from 7 till 9. I go by he, him pronouns. You can find my work at stepbackhistory.com or tristanwon'tshutup.com. If you want to support my work, you can go to patreon.com/stepbackhistory. Or if you are a Amazon Prime member, you get one free Twitch Prime subscription that you can use every month to help any independent Twitch creator you like. I recommend you use it on somebody because it's just, money being left on the table. But if you choose me, I'd be very grateful. But, of course, not a requirement. This is all free. And I hope that it will always be so. I don't see any situation where it wouldn't be. If you want to get up to date with some of the latest stuff that I'm up to, I have a video coming out sometime in the next, as early as today, like later today, and as late as Wednesday. So we'll see where that all fits. It is up ad-free for patrons right now who support for as little as 84 cents a month with an annual pledge. I love doing all that stuff. But you can still watch my video on... Jeez, what is the last video I did? This is embarrassing. Oh, wow. My own memory. Is it the prepping video? Is the prepping video still my latest video? Wow, it feels like it's been so long since I made that video. All right. Obviously, I'm having a really great morning mentally. Brain capacity-wise. If you want to submit a question for streams, future streams, because we're pretty loaded up on questions for today, but but for future streams, they stay in the hopper for like a month. So if you're a regular and you want to submit questions, it's a good place to do it. And also, if this is your first time watching one of my streams, then hi. Welcome aboard. I'm very happy that you're here. If you'd like to make yourself known, we have a very active chat that's very fun and very active and supportive. So please join on in and make yourself known. All right. I think that's everything. So without further ado, let's try to get me up on here. Okay. Very good. Oh.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you see me?
I can. You're very summery.
That's because it's summer, isn't it?
It is.
Extraordinarily bright and warm, unfortunately. And my suffering will never cease. Mm-hmm. Hi.
Yeah, when I woke up this morning and I was out for my walk and I'm like, man, it's soupy outside. I looked at my phone and then I was like, Environment Canada has issued a warning that the humidex is going to make it feel like it's in the high 30s or low 40s today. And I was like, well...
That's not great.
Yeah. Guess I'm not going outside.
Yeah, we're not having as much heat problems here, but... Again, I'm not used to the heat anyway, so.
This summer has been rad. I don't know if you've heard, but like North America is getting fucking destroyed weather-wise this week. It's like every corner of the continent's having some sort of like massive heat wave or like flooding or something.
Isn't like all of the Western US having like the worst heat wave in like 1,500 years or some shit like that?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I think at least Canada yesterday recorded its highest temperature in history. They at one part in British Columbia, the thermometer hit 47.2 degrees Celsius, which I don't know what that is in American. 47.2. Let's find out what
It's definitely too hot.
Yeah. It's 106, 117 degrees America. So, yeah, we are fucking dying, is the
Very
thing.
high freedom units.
And here it's decided to also, like, this week, it's just like every single day, it's like 70% chance of rain and thunderstorms. And it's like, okay. So the apocalypse is here. So that's great.
Well, I'm thankful that it's taking out North America first.
Yeah. I mean, we earned it.
I get to have a 6 hour warning window before the world ends.
Yeah. How are you doing? How is Fifth
Svitjod is okay. We just had midsummer celebrations, which I didn't really celebrate because it's a holiday that I don't really care too much about. Plus, it's COVID, so it's still a pandemic going on. So I haven't really wanted to do a big party or anything. But we had midsummer. We sacrificed the bear and the cheating boyfriend in the pyramid. Yeah.
Excellent.
Having a good time generally. The Swedish government, I think, doesn't exist anymore. I haven't actually checked the news that much. Yeah. We currently do not have a government, technically. The prime minister has resigned. It's anarchy. It's total anarchy.
Oh, then everything must be working really well.
Yeah, exactly. It's doing great.
Yeah, someone just pointed out last week was fucking wild, where we had somebody literally commit suicide to own the libs.
Oh yeah,
John McAfee.
Yeah. I don't really know much about him. Like I saw a bunch of people dunking on him, and I have literally no clue what this person is.
He's like, he like turned into like he was like this like he developed an antivirus software, but then he was like a massive libertarian asshole, and then when he was about to basically get arrested in the U.S. for not paying any taxes, which usually you can just get away with, but apparently he was doing it extra bad. He ran away and like was living in South America doing tons of drugs and like was like tried to run for president at one point in 2016. Big QAnon guy, big like right wing blowhard, and when he was finally arrested in Spain and was being held because he was going to be extradited to the U.S. for, again, not paying taxes. And then he, like, very obviously, like, put out a bunch of stuff on social media that was, like, implying that if I commit suicide, I didn't commit suicide, it's going to be another Jeffrey Epstein. And then he committed suicide. And it's like, he literally the day he committed suicide, he had somebody post on his Instagram a giant letter Q. So, that's fun.
Just the peak poster.
Yeah. Then, 91-year-old former Alaskan Senator Mike Gravel died, who was like a big progressive voice, and very big progressive voice, especially with American foreign policy, which is very rare in the United States.
Yeah.
He was the person, he ran in the Democratic primaries with the explicit plan to get into the debates to push Bernie to the left on foreign policy issues, and then as soon as he had done so, drop out and endorse him. He never did get there, but he did start the Gravel Institute, which is now like billing itself as like the antidote to PragerU.
Yeah, I haven't really like seen that thing, but it seems like a okay like little channel.
I patron it. It's very good. I think it's exactly what America needs, because America can't have things happen to it. Like, it can't understand politics unless it's explained with cartoons and what's it called? Like celebrities telling them about things.
Yeah, I just haven't been able to like connect to it that much, unfortunately.
That's fair.
But I'm sure it's a good channel.
The next thing that happened is in Surfside, Florida, a condo partially collapsed, which says so many fun things, because There's like multiple building reports showing that this building had lots of structural damage that because of the way regulatory laws work in Florida, basically nobody had to do anything about it because there's basically no rules.
Florida is like an anarcho-capitalist hellscape,
Yeah,
basically Fallout.
but it also exposes that like in our current economy where housing has become a investment asset rather than a place for people to live in. There's been this rush to build as many houses and condos as fast and as cheap as possible, which means that like this condo is made of like shitty materials and is poorly maintained, and it's like
Out of a cardboard.
yeah. And the thing is that it's not alone. There are a lot of buildings like this out there as like housing becomes unaffordable. They just build more and more so that billionaires will buy it so that they can rent it out because that's what happens when you treat. That's what happens when you make a group that is designed. I was saying this to Kelly on Sunday as we were at a diner, and I was like, that this diner's like purpose is not to make food; it's to make money. And when housing exists not to make houses but to make money, all of a sudden what the people want is not important.
Yeah, it reminds me of like a TikTok I saw today. Weirdly enough, where like a lot of because there's like a subsection of TikTok that's like landlord TikTok, and a bunch of like landlords are really excited for I think the 30th of this month because then that's when the sort of like mortgage and rent moratorium or whatever it's called expires.
Yeah.
That they put in place during COVID so that people wouldn't become homeless. And a bunch of landlords just like losing their shit over how like millions of housing units are going to become available. Because yeah, in the mindscape of the American capitalist,
Yep. They
people don't exist. It is only money making.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody knows this is like a little thing that's kind of going under the radar that there are a few like huge multi-billion-dollar funds that are planning and when the eviction moratorium ends to just scoop up all of these empty homes to turn them into rental properties. And the way that it's been told to me is that once this goes through, there will basically be no more housing left. Like
Yeah.
Nobody will be able to buy houses anymore.
Yeah, and because like rent prices have been going up as well, right? Because they know that like they are becoming more dominant, and the more dominant they become, the higher rents that they can extract, because the alternatives become fewer and fewer. So, America is doing great, by the way.
You're doing great, honey.
You're doing great, Sweaty. The fact that like everyone's been talking about like how infrastructure in America is falling apart, like is currently falling apart, but haven't done anything about it, is like also coming into effect now too, with
Yep.
buildings and bridges just randomly collapsing, because no one's taking care of anything.
Yeah.
Did you hear about Texas also? Texas power grid is again fucking up because it's too warm this time. It was too cold a few months ago, and now it's too warm. So Texas can't have power.
Yeah, man, we're starting high energy. We're starting mad.
Yeah.
Goddamn, yeah, like, and now there's this like heat wave unlike any seen in U.S. history, showing up in the West Coast. So,
Yeah. I can't. I mean, I can't wait for how this is going to end up because historically, when these sort of conditions establish themselves, there's like a decade left before either world war or like wave of revolutions. So, one of them is going to be good, one of them is going to be bad.
fun times.
Fun
everything's
times.
everything's going great. I feel
We're in the
good.
cool zone now. We're still in the cool zone. We've been in the cool zone for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Once they actually decide to let that moratorium expire, because they keep kicking it down the road. Like every month, it's just about to expire, and then they just extend it one more month. When that finally expires, oh boy. Like I think that's why they keep doing it, right? Because they know that they can't.
Yeah,
They know that if they stop it, they are basically like leading. They're going to cause a revolution or like an attempted like it's going to be an absolute riot.
yeah.
Because like it's
Like
something like 3% of the population will be homeless.
overnight too.
Yeah, so they just keep extending it, and but they also are neoliberals, so they can't fix it. They can't just give people homes or, you know, do something like a rent forgiveness program or something.
Yeah, yeah. They're really just waiting for the problem to sort itself out, and then they can sort of let it go without realizing that, like,
It's gonna be, yeah. They're America's like the king of like kicking important political questions down the road until it literally explodes. They did it with slavery. They did it with civil rights. Uh, they're doing it with climate change. So you know, this is fun.
yeah. And all of those things that you already mentioned, they have been fixed once they explode, right?
Yep. Thank Anamorphic Mind for summing
Slavery.
it up. Everything is coming up, Millhouse. I agree.
Mm. How are you doing though? I've just like talked about all the depressing news that I've seen.
Um, this week's gonna be pretty. Last week was fun. I can't. I'm starting to learn very quickly. And this is good. This is good news. I'm not complaining about this. It's gonna sound like I'm complaining, but I'm not. But ever since we had our first phase of opening, I seem to not be able to not do something every day of the weekend. So like I have been seeing people a lot, and it's been really fun. Like last weekend, we were planning on not seeing anybody because, or just because we didn't have any plans, and I had a friend cancel on us, and we were going to go furniture shopping. Then like on Friday, one of our friends, like on Friday or on Saturday, one of our friends was like, "Let's go get drinks right now." And it's like, okay. And then the next day, my mom called and was like, "If you're going furniture shopping, I'm on vacation and kind of bored. Can I go furniture shopping with you?" And I'm like, "Okay, I guess." Fun date with mom and pop. But next week is gonna be fun. This week, sorry, I guess it's this week now. It's a wild week. Wednesday we're opening up to phase 2, which allows for you to have people in your house now.
I love having people in my house.
Yeah. So things are opening up in a bunch of different businesses and stuff, including haircuts, of which I have already booked one. So this madness will end. This Lovecraftian nightmare of a haircut I have is going to go away, and it's going to be replaced with a normal hair by next week. And then that's Wednesday. Then Thursday, I'm getting my freaking vaccine.
Oh, you're getting your second dose?
Yeah, and it's technically a holiday because July 1st is our like it's Canada Day, but like because of everything that's going on, we're like let's cancel Canada Day. So I don't know if the city's actually celebrating anything for it, but I'm getting full of science juice so that I don't get COVID.
I love science juice. I've also gotten science juice. I
Yeah,
got my science juice a few days ago. It will kick your ass. It kicked my ass.
fun. Then
Yeah,
Friday,
it's
I'm getting that furniture that I got on the weekend, which is like some stuff for the back patio, so we can have people. We can patio now.
wholesome.
Yeah, it's the most domestic thing ever. You had quite an eventful week, though, as I heard.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Breaking
yeah.
news.
Breaking news. I broke my arm. I broke it skating, which isn't great.
You had just finished doing a backflip into a reverse
I mean,
360.
You're okay. Okay, you're not wrong. I did do those things accidentally. It just happened that I landed on my elbow.
Yeah, you accidentally did something really rad. You just didn't complete. You just didn't land the finish. You know.
Yeah, exactly. I felt, but that's also like pretty important part of it. But yeah, like I broke my right arm. It's a lot better now. I can move it around, as you can see. I can't really twist it like this, and I can't really lift anything or push any buttons or use it for anything. I can use it to click the computer mouse, and that's basically all I needed to do. So, but I can't skate. When I go grocery shopping, I have to have everything in my left arm. So, that's me. That's fun.
Now, yeah, it was very rude of whoever it was that in the park that day left an oversized banana peel on the cycling trail.
Yeah, exactly. Like in the bowl, just made me completely.
And that person on by the side with a slide whistle just going as and then somebody, yeah, with like a made like a, what's it called, like a big bonk sound, like kind of like a Looney Tunes thing.
Mhm. As I fell, I went, "Yikes!"
Yep. And then what's it called? Like just this big bump that was like 6 inches tall showed up on your head, and there was a bunch of like little birds.
Birds
Yeah,
flying around, stars.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I had a big cartoon-sized bone that just stuck out of my arm.
Oh God, you took it to like, now it's a different type of cartoon. Now it's invincible.
No, I was thinking more like the one of those cartoon bones, or
Uh,
just like a bit thing and a big knob.
yeah. Oh man.
More of them. I still haven't seen Invincible. I need to see that.
I know it's like it's become there's now too many invincible memes for you to like not to pass it. Now it's like become
Yeah.
memes.
Yeah, exactly. I need to keep up with what the fuck's going on because I have no idea. It's also like on TikTok, a bunch of it. There's a bunch of like videos. People are making like in jokes about it. I have no clue what's going on.
I didn't know think Mark think was fun. I don't know why it's funny. I gotta find out.
Yeah, exactly. I literally have no clue what that is.
Uh, didn't realize that I knew Cypher. He brought you up yesterday in a live stream. I did not know that he brought me up. Yeah, yeah, I know him. Cypher, the cynical historian guy. Yeah. What's it
Oh,
called?
really?
He's a regular at Vid. Well, we've collaborated on a few videos, and he's a regular at VidCon. So I usually end up meeting with him once in a while. Dude's such a like cowboy. Like he grew up in like Las Vegas and like drives a motorcycle and has like, at least the last time I met him, had like this big like kind of like almost handlebar mustache thing, and I was like, oh dear.
Oh dear.
Tristan, your frame on the wall is crooked. Yes, it is. I'm glad you noticed. It was a little bit crooked before, and then my mom pointed it out and got mad at me, so I made it more crooked for my next video.
As is right.
But yeah, sounds like you've had quite the ride.
I've had an okay ride. Thankfully, Swedish healthcare is basically extremely subsidized and almost free, so wasn't that bad. I paid $25 for like X-ray, physical therapy, nurse, doctor, all that jazz.
I would have thought you wouldn't have to pay anything. That's surprising.
You still have to pay like a tiny bit, up to a certain level, and then it's free. So like once you pay like $400 within a year or something like that. Conversions are difficult. After that, everything's just free. Yeah, they have a similar thing with medication. Like you do have to pay for like drugs, but eventually they become free.
Ah,
So there's like a maximum amount of money you can pay. So if you only use the healthcare system like every now and then, you still pay basically every time you do it. But if you use your healthcare system like a lot, if you're like very dependent on it, it becomes free really quickly,
okay.
which is good.
Yeah. Here, like that's like completely free, and then it's if you injure your luxury bones, which are your teeth and or if you're brain sick, and you have to go to a psychotherapist, then you have to pay money. Those are still private healthcare here. You have to have like health insurance, but just for your mouth bones and your brain goo.
Brain goo is important. We have. I know we have coverage for brain goo, but we don't have coverage for luxury bones.
Oh,
So
and also
if
glasses. Yeah.
if I were, yeah, exactly. So if I were to like break my eye or break my luxury bones, I would have to pay a lot more money. Uh, unfortunately.
And also medicine costs money here. It's not as expensive as in America, but it still costs money. Isn't this fun? Isn't learning fun, everybody?
I love healthcare.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
love I love being able to not become completely messed up.
but we are at our requisite point where we decide that we have riffed for enough time and that we should probably look at what people have asked us to answer instead of just rambling about what our weeks are going to be like I did.
That's what we do.
I,
That's what we do.
this is true. Okay. Now, the first question, we're getting very serious very fast. This is a question from somebody named the Good Morty with the question, who closes the bus door when the bus driver gets out?
The
Hard
bus
hitting.
driver.
But how?
They can do it from the outside.
I refuse to believe this. How
Like
do you...
they have like a knob on the outside of the bus that they can just like turn. It's the same way that they open it up when they get into it.
This is fake news. The way that the answer is that buses never close, and that the every time a bus driver needs to, they close the bus at the end of the day, and then they crawl out the window.
Oh, I was about to think that like there always has to be a bus driver inside every bus.
Oh yes, yeah, it's like
If
Highlander.
one leaves, yeah, exactly. If one leaves, another person has to take their place.
Yes, it's passed down from like parent to child as the generations pass. Like you must take the bus when I am gone.
Yeah, and the bus drivers get built into the buses when they're made, and then just get like rotated out occasionally.
Yeah, you know those like really like sad cyborgs they have in the Warhammer 40K universe? They're like that. They're just like built into the bus.
Like the Titans, I guess. I don't know that much about Warhammer.
I don't know. I can't remember what they're called, but they're like cyborgs who they take like criminals and wipe their minds and then use their brains as artificial intelligence. I don't remember what
Yeah.
they're called, but that's what they use instead of like intelligent computers or whatever. Someone will fill servitors. There we go.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Oh
so
those. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
all right. Um, here's okay. The next question we got here comes from Arthur Rommel. That's an unfortunate last name. Um, what is the risk of discrimination towards trans people in employment? Are they protected enough? Tough question.
That is a tough question.
Multiple minds on this.
There are different ways of interpreting like how are trans people supposed to be protected. You could say that discriminating against trans people is a type of like sex discrimination or gender discrimination. That if, say, a trans woman applies for a job, doesn't get the job because she's a trans woman, that is like discrimination because of the woman part, and it kind of falls under that sort of legal system. But in other legal systems, that might not be the case. It depends on how you define, um, like how you define gender legally, which varies between countries. Believe it or not, and it also happens on how you define discrimination. So some countries need to have like specific sort of like LGBT anti-discrimination laws, and some countries can sort of argue that their already existing gender protection laws would also protect trans people. Um, so there are varying perspectives around this, but generally, I think I think there needs to be like more employee protection generally, because even in places where there are good protections against discrimination, like if you, like me, dear listener, is what is called as a non-passing or an openly trans person, you if the person that you're interviewing with, they might not give a reason for why you're not hired. Like if they don't give a reason for why you're not hired, then they can just like not hire you. So in Sweden, I think we do have like LGBT employment discrimination laws, but like every trans woman that I know knows that like you're not going to get hired basically anywhere, especially where you work in industries where you talk to people. Like there's a reason why a lot of trans people are on YouTube. Or if you want to go the more like historical route, why a lot of trans people end up in sex work, because no one fucking hires us. It's a bit of an open secret that self-employment of various kinds is like somehow more reliable than applying for a job. So, but that also varies between places.
Mm-hmm. And like there's a lot, like not on just like not getting hired, there's a bunch of like small things, like while you're in a job, like getting passed over for promotions, or much more often now that we're moving towards a post-employee economy, which is just the worst words that ever came out of my mouth, where we're all going to be 0-hour contract workers, that they can get your chances of getting your contracts renewed might be lower, or and because like you have fewer prospects, it means that you can't like try and negotiate for higher wages or anything like that. So it's like, oh, turns out that the longer we keep like just the rules of people needing jobs to have money to live, that we're going to keep reproducing discrimination over and over and over again.
Yeah. It's
almost as if that getting rid of this whole idea that you need to work to have the things that you want in life, if you got rid of that, a lot of our discrimination in the world would not be a problem, or it would be much less of a problem anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost if capitalism's behind it all, but that's just me though. Drink iced tea. I was doing the Kermit the Frog thing.
Oh.
But yeah, I'm very good at jokes today. I'm sorry, guys. It's like 38 degrees outside. I can't. I could only be so funny.
It's probably really funny. It's just that I'm also sort of melting due to the heat, and I'm also like, I'm on over-the-counter pain medication, but like my brain is not fully functioning right now. There's part of my brain that's just like dealing with pain from my arm, and another part of my brain that's like shut down because of pain medication. So I'm just like, I'm just slow picking up jokes.
Yeah. There's the two parts of your brain that are fogged. The one that's fogged by pain and the one that's fogged by painkillers.
Exactly.
Sorry, I'll try to keep you...
The worst of both sides.
Yeah. I'll try to keep you entertained so that you don't think about all that. Canadians can't function in heat. Listen, this is unnaturally hot weather. It's actually bananas. But it has rained recently. Yes, it has. It has been raining nonstop. So our choices in good old London, Ontario are between thunderstorms and soup. Those are our two weathers right now. And right now we are currently in soup. Okay, I'm going to... Yeah. Okay, so this is another question from... sounds like someone from your neck of the woods, Mikhail Anderson. Anders' son. Okay. And I get to say a Swedish person's name. This will be fun.
Ooh.
What are
do you want to try to pronounce it in the Swedish way too?
I don't even know how to do that. All right. What are your thoughts on Kajsa Ekis Ekman? And why do you think ideas like his are so common amongst mainstream leftists in Sweden? I'm just going to send you the text of the name because I'm guaranteed I did not.
Yeah, first of all, that's a her.
Okay.
So, Kajsa Ekis Ekman is a prominent feminist in Sweden who has recently gone out to be super turfy. which you can be turfy all you want. I guess you're gonna be an asshole, but you can do that. But Kajsa Ekman recently released a book called On the Existence of Gender, which is one of the like worst academic books I've ever seen in my entire life. It quotes what's that? What's the Nazi site that's not the Daily Stormer? There's another one that's like super popular.
I don't know.
Whatever. Like it basically quotes like websites like that as like reliable primary sources for like the trans epidemic. Um,
Fun.
Really fun. Um, also used like it contradicts itself super often. It often like completely misunderstands studies that it takes in to use as sources. The book also uses Chairman Mao to argue for that trans people will cause the patriarchy to become more entrenched than before. Um, because that's fun. Because she's also like very leftist in the Swedish context, which isn't great. I made a video about the history of transphobia, and in the end of that, I talk about I review that book because I like progressively review a few books
Oh, it's that book.
throughout the video, and at the very end of it, it is I review uh, I take a second. It's basically the Swedish version of the transsexual empire. Um, this woman is a leftist. Yeah, very prominent leftist and very used to be very well respected. Um, and now people are seeing that she's just a bit.
All I'm saying is I know there is no transsexual empire, but I know who would design the uniforms for the military of said empire.
I don't.
I was trying. Alice. That was my joke. Okay.
Oh, oh, of course.
I
Oh,
sidetracked you.
yeah, no, it's okay. Yeah, Breitbart or Quillan. It was though I know that Breitbart was definitely part of the source description in her book. Um, uh, it uses yeah, like Jesse Single as like a good source for its argument. It's an awful book. What was the question? I've just been dunking on Kaisei Kazekman.
Uh, well, why do you think ideas like hers are so common amongst mainstream leftists in Sweden?
Because mainstream leftism in Sweden is fucking cursed and it's awful and I hate it. Well, it's not mainstream leftism specifically. I feel like leftism in Sweden generally is okay, but Swedish leftism is more. You know the sort of like Twitter personalities who are very much like they hate LGBT people and they hate women, but they go like we need Marxism, we need communism now, and then we can fix all of the other like gender identity, sexual issues.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's basically the Swedish left. Um, they're not like as hostile towards like LGBT people, for example, or women, uh, but they're a bit more like quiet on it. And there are definitely elements within the Swedish left uh, that are shitty. But I think her opinions are more of a mainstream view in Swedish feminism because Swedish feminism is very arrogant and very sort of stuck in the second wave. And I
Uh,
think a lot of that is because a lot of what feminists wanted in Sweden back then became sort of successful in Swedish politics. Like a lot of reforms that they wanted through became successful, and so second wave feminism here became more entrenched than in other places where it wasn't as successful and it sort of had to evolve. Um, so feminism here in Sweden is still like very much anti-sex work, very much like anti-trans, very very like old-fashioned feminism, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I've met many second-wave feminists who are great, but there are a lot of them who are pretty shitty.
Fair.
So that's sort of the thing. It sucks ass. I don't hang out in feminist circles here anymore because every single one that I've been to has had like a significant amount of transphobic people in it, which sucks.
Yeah.
Um, Especially since I am a feminist, but you can't really do much uh, when the entire fucking system decides that it fucking hates you.
That does sound cursed.
It's very cursed.
Makes me think like the fact that she used like Nazi stuff, Nazi shit in her like sources. It's just like every time somebody does like a deep dig into like extremely popular works of literature by like you know people on the right that like people take very seriously, and it turns out
Mhm.
that their like sources are absolutely terrible, and it's just like man, like I I like the fact that I just realized like I am putting far too much like of my anxiety energy into making sure that everything is like waterproof, because like when the right can just put up like the most like random bullshit, and like they're just taken seriously and never scrutinized for anything, and it's just like, oh man, this isn't a fair
Yeah.
fight.
But yeah, that got published. It became a big like thing in Swedish feminism, and now it's sort of mellowed down again. And I'm hoping it's gonna mellow for a bit more. But
Sounds like Angela
it's,
Nagel.
I don't know who that is.
She's a quote unquote leftist who wrote a book called Kill All Normies, which was a sort of analysis of the rise of the far right that came to the conclusion that the far right came to prominence basically because there was too much political correctness and too many pronouns or whatever. And so she is a leftist that shows up on like Tucker Carlson and stuff like that to talk about why the left has gone too far.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's the cause of actual leftism, to improve the left, to hang out with Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, and also like kill like what's it called? But also like it was published by Zero Books, and I don't know if anyone knows anything about Zero Books, but it's like this like semi left, like, it's this quote unquote leftist kind of infamous amongst academics because it's like the publisher parish house where you they will basically publish almost anybody's work and not do like any sort of fact checking or editing of the work. And so like this book, when like put under scrutiny, like is absolutely terribly sourced and like all sorts of stuff. So it's like, oh god.
That's definitely something that happened with Kasek Ezekman's book as well. Like that, it hasn't, like, a copywriter has not been over that and double checked it and like fact checked it, because
Yeah.
it is wild.
I'm just gonna say to everybody out there, I said last year that after the election was over, the next phase of what's going to happen with the far right is that they were going to try and make inroads with the left. And this year's like been defined by this happening, like with
Yeah.
Jimmy Dore and like turfishness, and I mean it's been going on for a while with turfs, but like this is the next phase of the fight for the left. Is we're gonna have to stop people trying to just like try to make this claim that like we need to work with fucking fascists in order to fix our system, because no, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna work.
These people are also the same people who give like Bernie Sanders shit for compromising, for not being like the perfect leftist either, for like drifting to the right. I love that the same people who complain about people drifting to the right are also the people who will just straight up cooperate with fascists. Just be like, no, that's fine. Liberals drifting to the right, that's bad fascism. But like, as a communist working together with a fascist to take down liberalism, that's just fine. The self-awareness in these people, I swear to God.
It's
The
also
only, yeah, sorry, yeah,
well, it's just also really fun to see that all of these leftists who were considered allies to the causes of marginalized people just instantly forgetting that, like, the people that you're trying to make friends with actively want to see, you know, people in our movement actually dead, like exterminated from the planet.
Yeah.
It's like, I hate this so much.
Yeah.
Just say no
That's
to the
why I
people.
don't. Just, yeah, exactly. That's why I don't really trust anyone who does this sort of like weird thing where they'll rather ally with far righters than with liberals. Like I don't really trust that. I don't. Something's sus there. Fascists are bad, actually. Yeah, exactly. That's what I think too. I don't think you should ever work with a fucking fascist. That's just me.
Yeah, goddamn.
Anyway, sorry.
Just remember Operation Barbarossa, everybody. Just remember that even if you are ever tempted by a red-brown alliance, that, you know, it has it's only for so long until they turn on you. Because in the end, for people who don't believe in hierarchies, the what's it called? Fascists are an ideology literally obsessed with the concept of hierarchy, and yeah. And maybe we shouldn't think of people's human rights as being negotiable in order for the bigger cause. That's just my take.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were called beefsteak Nazis. Yeah, I put all my video ideas up for a vote, and it hasn't been voted through to be an actual video yet. But Otto Strasser, and like the sort of beefsteak Nazis, the commie Nazis, and like the dirtbag left and all this kind of stuff is gonna be a video topic someday.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah. Can we have red green instead of red brown? Yeah, I mean that would be good. The Christmas Alliance. Okay. Next up we got what do you know about the Cooperative Party in the UK, and do you think other parties could make use of similar practices like joint candidacy? I don't know what this is.
Me neither.
All right, moving
on. The only thing I know about the UK electoral system is that it needs to not have the fucking MP system anymore, because no one gives a shit about the local MP, but everyone like is affected by, because they have basically first past the post, right? Which means that, like, despite oftentimes left-leaning parties will win like a plurality of the vote, they want to, like, the Tories will still like increase their fucking parliamentary numbers because they won more narrow victories, whereas there are more like safe left-wing seats, which is bad.
Yeah, I mean, I have the MP system here, and I agree that it is bad.
It's a parliamentary democracy. I mean, it's not perfect, but at least it's better than that. Doesn't even require that much reform. You're just making shit simpler.
Electoral reform used to be an issue that was like an actual election issue in our country until the Liberals campaigned on it, got elected, and then didn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And then 2019 we had our last election, and just it wasn't even an issue anymore because only the NDP, which had no chance of being a forming government, were the ones who were championing it anymore. It sucks. It sucks so much. You know that our first African American prime minister is probably going to end up getting a majority again.
Your first
Justin Trudeau, our first African American prime minister.
Oh yeah. Is he gonna get reelected? Do you think?
Yeah, well, right now he's in a minority government, and it looks like the Conservatives are doing really poorly because of COVID. So it looks like if he were to run an election this fall, he might be able to get into a majority government territory, and so it's one of those times where it's like it'd be advantageous for them to call an election sooner rather than later. So, and the NDP stand to gain by this election too, so they could probably get the numbers to call it. It's fun.
It's fun that you can just like make that you can just call an election whenever you want, because the UK does that too. Like I don't really get that.
Well, we essentially do what's happened in Sweden. Just it's just not as big a deal here.
Yeah, so you just like keep voting out your government. Yeah, right. That makes sense. Yeah, we never do that here, so that's like alien to me.
Yeah. It's called a snap election. It's very fun. It's very stressful and chaotic.
And thankfully, we're not going to have one over here.
So I heard you talking about Jimmy Dore, and I've heard his stuff before, but I never enjoyed him. What the fuck did he just do? He's just kind of gone insane in the last, like, maybe, like, 6 months. Where, yeah, so Jimmy Dore was this, like, breakoff of the Young Turks who thought that the Young Turks was too liberal, which, like, you know, honestly, fair. But also, during the 2016 election, he was, like, a big Bernie Sanders supporter that went we went like really off the deep end in like conspiracy theory land. Like he's a really huge conspiracy theorist. And then after Bernie got voted or no, didn't win the 2020 primary, he's just been like trying to find a new grift because he's like a multimillionaire who like lives in a mansion and stuff like that while talking about purity politics for socialism. So, like, the big thing was when there was this, like, movement to try and force the vote on Medicare for All, which would have been this really big use of political capital to accomplish literally nothing in the early Biden government. And he made such a big deal about it that anybody who didn't support him, he, like, basically just obsessed with calling out, especially all of the women of color, which was weird. He really loved yelling at, like, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who's, like, a junior congresswoman who, like, has no say in, like, what kind of stuff gets onto the floor. And then soon after everybody started being like, bruh, what the fuck? He, this is sort of like the beginning of the big schism between, like, the temporary alliance between shitty leftists and everybody else. But yeah, now he's, like, gone down the road of, like, having people from, like, the Boogaloo Boys onto his show and talking about how we have much more to agree with than disagree with. We should start making friends with all of these, like, fascist groups that want to, start a civil war. And it's like, okay. So that's what's going on with Jimmy Dore.
That's fun.
I used to have some begrudging respect for Jimmy Dore for, like, really sticking to, the issues that mattered, like not getting bogged down in, like, the minutia of, like, the process, I guess. But now he's just, like, gone absolutely insane. So that's fun.
That's very fun.
Yep. All right. Next question is from our non-Dutch person with the Dutch name. With the rise of online tabletop role-playing games and tabletop simulators, do you think D&D will remain as the most prominent TTRPG in the next 5 to 10 years?
Probably.
Yeah.
It has too much momentum, and it's really hard to replace that sort of like person-to-person interaction that D&D offers.
Yeah.
And tabletop RPGs and like digital versions will always be more limited than real life because you can always just improvise in real life. When you're limited by digital stuff, you're going to be more limited. And the good thing about tabletop role-playing games is that you can improvise and do whatever you want. You can't really do that in any digital space, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think some important things to point out is that, and someone pointed out this to me, and it makes a lot of sense, which is that Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons has, like, in like the hobby space, it has such like an overwhelming command over the entire industry to the point where it's basically there's a lot of people where they have never even heard of a tabletop role playing game and they just think it's just called Dungeons and Dragons, and that's the only thing. And like, there's somebody pointed out that like they have divested from a lot of like the tabletop convention scenes. Like they no longer show up at tabletop conventions, and now they just host their own events. And there's this like there's this person who's just like, we should probably get to the point where we should consider Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop role playing games two separate hobbies, because they are very different things that different people are. They are, while they're not very different because it's essentially the same thing, but like D&D is so big that it is functionally its own community, and it's not like even like 10 years ago, but like maybe like 20 years ago, where people who played D&D also played like some other games that were like, reasonably popular as well. Even 10 years ago, when like Pathfinder had like a good chance of like beating D&D for parts of it, that's all gone. And now D&D is like, it's very much its own thing. It's run by one company that has a very vested interest and has put money into basically making sure that new people who come into the hobby don't learn about any other games except for their game. That's about it.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
And if you like introduce any people to any of these games, it is the only thing anybody wants to play. It is it's the only thing that I run these days because it is the only game that anybody wants to play. Yay. All right.
I gotta play more D&D.
I do too. The one thing, one of the reasons why I was so excited to get patio furniture was because the number one thing I wanted to do was get one of my campaigns that I've been playing since 2018 with people in Toronto is coming to an end. We're sort of on the last adventure, and because it's all people in Toronto and I've moved, the game's probably going to end, and we'll probably like not pick up another campaign. So I'm using it as an opportunity to I want to get an in-person game going here in London, and I've got some friends here who really, really want to get into one. So yeah. Okay. Yep. This is a question directly for you, Mia. Ooh. Last week, when I asked you if a one-party Republican dictatorship would ban pro-LGBTQ media, you said if the GOP were able to establish a one-party dictatorship, American culture would probably have already turned against pro-LGBTQ media. Does that mean you believe the GOP would have to change attitudes before they can take over? Like, I think their plan is to try and establish a one-party rule next time the Democrats fuck up enough to let them back in power. And I think that's their plan because they know they can't stay in power by changing attitudes and continuing to win elections in the long term.
Well, that also depends a little bit on like how grabbing power looks like. If we're talking about like a violent military coup, then sure, but then they're going to have different then we're talking about like a rapid shift into authoritarian fascism. And if they want to control all the media, at that point they probably could. But I just think that the way that they're going to try to grab power is going to be through this like weird electoral, like legalist system, basically, so that Democrats who fight nice can't do anything against them because they want to play by the rules. And in that system, they don't really have significant enough control over media, because like they can't really be super authoritarian in a very strict way. But what I'm saying is, if people were to allow that to happen, if people were to allow that the GOP to just take power and become a dictatorship using this like slow method, they would probably be so far into sort of like extreme right-wing conservatism that they would also affect LGBT media, if that makes sense. So like if it's a fast grab of power, that's one thing. But I think the more realistic thing is going to be like a slow transfer of power, and either they get away with it, and if they do, I'm thinking that the American people are just like too far conservative and too far Republican to do anything about that, which will also affect like a myriad of other things, including LGBT media. Or people will, rise against it and fuck around against it.
Yeah.
At which point the people who fight against this power grab will probably be more progressive and probably will be more, um, pro LGBT things. So, uh, they're connected. I think there is a correlation between these two things, but they're not causally linked. I don't think the GOP would care that much about like LGBT children's media. I think they would care more about like banning CNN. Uh, you know, eventually, probably LGBT media is going to get the axe as well in that system, but I don't think they're going to be first on the line.
What do you stand for, Bagel Bites? Exactly.
The question is no longer, uh, do you want to buy
Wheat
French
Thins.
toast? Wheat Thins, that was the one. Question is, do you want to support Wheat Thins in the fight against authoritarian fascism
Such a great.
while buying Wheat Thins?
It's kind of embarrassing how many times I've now watched that special.
I keep having it on repeat. It's so good.
Yeah.
It hurts me because I want to make my YouTube videos like that, but I can't sing that well and I don't have a piano. But I just want to remake Inside, but about like, I don't know, electoral reform or whatever.
That'd be so good.
That'd be so good.
Um,
I want to combine the dry humor and topic of Well, There's Your Problem podcast with the stylistic presentation of Bo Burnham's Inside.
there you go.
You could still keep the same song about Jeffrey Bezos.
I love the new TikTok thing is people who ordered something on Amazon and needed to show up before they have to like go on vacation or something, and it's like they're praying to Jeffrey Bezos and they play the song.
God, TikTok is a mess recently. Like, I really think that like a lot of people on TikTok have just completely missed the message in that one.
Yeah.
Like, cause they're like a landlord TikTok fucking loves Jeffrey Bezos. They love that song. People will use the song like Jeffrey Bezos, Jeffrey Bezos. While they like make a story about how they made a bunch of money during something, like either as landlords or it's just something else. Message completely over their
Yeah,
heads.
inside like every song from Inside has completely taken over TikTok, but they've all been extremely. I mean, like everything on TikTok, it's just been completely decontextualized into a billion
Just
different
noise.
random meetings.
Yeah. Really this last week I fucking hate TikTok. I need to delete TikTok from my phone because it's rotting my mind. Like I'm not. Anyway, when this stream is over, I'm gonna rewatch Inside while setting up for my recording tonight.
A lot of like, this is like one of the things that was so great about that is that Bo Burnham is like a really great like he really likes light, like he's really good at lighting and stage show stuff, and so like you can tell, and this is the part that I was talking about, like the fact that Bo Burnham almost definitely lives in a pretty large house, and also but like shows the whole thing to look like it's like a little apartment. Like every single thing, even the parts that look improvised and messy, are all extremely meticulously planned.
Yeah.
To the point where you find fun things like the air conditioner in the corner is only on during one part of the movie, which is during the song Sexting, and it's set at 69 degrees. And that's the only time it's on in the whole movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Oh man, I could talk about that special forever. There's so much good stuff in it.
It's a great fucking special.
I wanted to do at one point. I was like, should I make a Tristan One Shot video just about inside and the topic of climate grief, because there's so much. That's like the one thing that like like a lot of people, like the first message is like, oh, it's about
Being
COVID.
inside.
Yeah, it's about
Yeah,
COVID.
okay.
But like there's a lot, if you listen to it a few times, you notice that like a lot of it is about climate change and about basically like him coming to the conclusion that there's not that it's not real, we're not gonna, there's no 11th hour thing that's gonna save it, and the world's basically fucked.
Yeah.
And
It's a cynical special, to be sure.
and also
But I welcome them.
it's really good if you haven't gotten the chance to watch it. I put it off for longer than I should have, and now I can't stop watching it.
Yeah.
And I do just randomly sing Jeffrey Bezos over and over again because the song is absurdly catchy.
It has no right to be as catchy as it is, especially the first part that just ends in him shrieking.
Yeah. Okay. Next question here is, suppose these anti-CRT laws, which is good because cathode ray tubes are an inferior technology, and I am very glad that Republicans, it's weird Republicans are getting into legislating things, that they're getting rid of cathode ray tube televisions so quickly, especially banning them in schools. Maybe maybe it's bad for kids' eyes or something, I don't know. But suppose these anti-CRT laws get enforced. Will that make humanities degrees from universities in red states academically worthless? Like, suppose someone gets a history degree from a state university in Alabama, and then they apply to a postgraduate program in Toronto. Will the Canadian university just tell them, sorry, your degree from the U.S. South, so we can't consider it a real degree?
So I don't think that anyone would disqualify any degree that comes from that, but it would definitely like make the education in those areas significantly worse.
Yeah.
Like, because you're banning a type of theory of viewing the world, which is not something that universities are really supposed to be doing. The free speech advocates should really be losing their minds over this, but apparently not. Well, I wonder why. So what would happen is the degrees would still be as valuable as they are like on paper, right? But that's not really what matters. It's more about like, what is the quality of the work within a paper? What is that like? And if it comes from someone who is like had a very diverse education, a well-funded education, a very open education, there is a significant higher chance that you will have perspectives that will make the quality of your analysis better in history or philosophy or whatever you're making, right? But if you're not exposed to those things, if you're given a very if you're given a very sort of narrow worldview to work within, and I don't really know how much these bans would actually like extend. Like, are students still allowed to use it, or are they just like not allowed to use it at all? That means that the quality of the work that they're going to produce is also worse, unknowingly. Like, they could be doing their absolute best. They could try to be as inclusive and progressive as they possibly can, but you don't know what you don't know, right? So by virtue of the fact that they're like limiting the access to education, the quality is going to become worse. But they could still produce like magnificent, academic works. Still, they could, but they probably won't.
Mm-hmm. I do imagine that a bunch of professors, if they actually tried to enforce this stuff, would just edge themselves out of that education system. But the other thing too is like, I don't imagine you've gotten a lot of them in your when you were a grad student, but like, I'll just tell you, grad students who come from the U.S. have a bit of a reputation, especially in the history department. Because you essentially, especially in history, like when an American grad student comes into the program, you basically have to deprogram them. I don't know if anyone's like it's going to be like if it, like in Toronto, if like an American university student came, like being married to an American expat and like knowing a bunch of American expats, you start to learn that it like leaving the United States in general seems like akin to leaving a cult in like the personal experience of like the kind of trauma that you go through by leaving the US. Like this is where TikTok helped too, but like I've heard this story multiple times of like people who live in America who leave the United States and go start living in other countries, just like have several years where they're like kind of in shock about like what it's like to live in a country that's not the US. And yeah, and
they have to come to terms with like the world is a bit different than what they thought.
Yeah, but like the thing is, the way that it seems to be described is it's like leaving either like an abusive family or like a cult. Like it's like their brains have been so fucked with. And also like I've talked about stuff like how I taught in American history, and every time I did guest lectures, the notes I got from the professors were like, well, you wouldn't be able to do that lecture in the United States, but it was good. And so like there's already like, because of like power imbalance and stuff like that, like even if that stuff happened, there would probably we wouldn't be like, no, you can't come, you're from the University of Alabama, so you didn't learn, you know, critical race theory, because like that's already happening. Like that's already happens to a lot of American grad students. But like,
unfortunately,
yeah. So like because it would be way too much of a scandal to be like Canadian universities no longer accept applications from people from these universities, but it'll just further the discrepancy of how much like learning American grad students need to do if they like go study history abroad, because it takes it already takes a while for them to like kind of get out of the cult. That's about it.
Yeah, the tracks.
And there is also a north-south divide on that. Like when I was in American Studies, we had a student who was from California in our cohort, and she was very smart, very good, also very liberal, and kind of ran into like she was like very much like very into like a bunch of like really good activist causes. And then when it was like we were talking about like, hey, like I was the person who was trying to like get us was trying to like figure out all of our stuff with the union for professor, like for like the teaching union or the TA union. And she was just like, union? Like why would we join a union? And I was just like, oh, okay. Yeah, America, I forgot.
Does America not have student unions and stuff?
I don't know if they must have student unions, but like the thing is, from what I'm learning from like what Kelly's taught me is like like in America, the idea of like unions are so rare that they're actually it's actually kind of weird. Like the idea like, oh, like go just take it up with your union. She's like, union? The fuck is that? Oh, there's actually someone who was in my American Studies program in the Twitch chat who was like, I remember this. Yeah, I can't remember what her name was anymore, but yeah, I do remember that.
Yes.
Because of course I like every university department I was in, I became the union rep. Because of course. My brain is broken in that way, that I had to be involved with the union, including all of its really stupid politics. As we won't tell you, unions are great. The inside of a union is some of the worst fucking like catty bullshit I've ever had to deal with.
Yeah, 100%. Complete bullshit.
Yeah, I remember one of the meetings I was in the student union, like they had an entire meeting where like some big fuck up happened and everyone decided to blame this like one guy, and he just sat there getting more and more mad the entire time as everyone kept talking about how this guy fucked everything up. And then he got fucking pissed and he like threw his laptop and like stormed out of the room. And I was just like, holy shit, okay, fun. Or or There was this time we were doing our elections for all of the head positions, and they had somebody from, because we were a local, so we had somebody from the head office come down to like oversee the elections, because that's what you're supposed to do. And they were like, oh yeah, by the way, like this is like we try to do our elections like the way that we were doing it, and they were like, that's not the way you're supposed to do elections. Like, we have rules about how you're supposed to do elections, and these are the rules. And everyone got so mad at the person from like the head organization. And we went through the system, and like there was like talk of like leaving the greater chapter to like form our own union. It's just like, oh my god, this is why they can keep clawing back all of our money, and like we don't get any benefits because we spend all of our energy fighting each other and not like, you know. And also, everybody had to join the union, but there was like, you know, there are more right-wing departments. So like all of the union reps from like engineering, their entire like legislative agenda was to make the union as weak as possible. So they were there literally to just troll and fuck up the system.
That at my unit, they had the exact same thing, like where the economists did that. So the second they wanted to like break away from the main union and just form their own, everyone just let them, so that they could just like go hog wild on their own and not like fuck up the greater student union, and just like they could have their own like ANCAP like union.
Mm-hmm.
Not mess with ours, please. We ended up having like 5 different student unions at the end of my when I got my degree.
Oh, fun!
Very fun.
Yeah, so that's at the end of the day, so American grad students who come to Canada already are kind of like a joke. Not a joke. But when American grad students come to Canada for like history and stuff like that, there's already a learning curve that you have to like. And it's true of Canadian students too. Like when Canadians come up from high school, you have to basically deprogram all of the like American or Canadian patriotic bullshit that they've been ingested, and like be like, all right, day one, residential schools. You're not gonna be able to leave until you like thoroughly know how shitty we've been. But that's just teaching history. History departments are always like, you were a history major for your undergrad, yeah?
What did you say?
For your bachelor's, did you do history or did you do something else?
So I have history and the history of science and ideas.
Okay.
2 different courses, yeah.
So you know
the main thing.
You know when you're an undergrad that there are 2 types of history students. There are the ones who are like us, radical, like basically like communists who are angry at everything and want the nation state to die. And then there's just like uber patriots who want to memorize everything that drove and exploded during World War II.
Yeah.
And sometimes one turns into the other. But when you come up through high school, like first year students, there's so many people who are like patriots because history is a lot of like maps and countries and stuff like that. And it like attracts a certain type of like patriotic person. Then when you go to university and you like have your first year history class on your country and you do like, you know, Swedish history 101, and then you're like, oh no. Oh no.
Oh.
And they either get mad and they start making blogs about the political correctness in the universities, or they just become radicals, or they become political science majors.
No, everyone who's like every centrist becomes a political science major.
This is true. I always
they don't like the history. They don't want to learn too much, or they leave and just like, can I have all of the theory but none of the practical like applications of that theory, please?
There was like this thing to look out for at my university, which is like always watch out for the people who are double majors in history and political science, because it's like they're guaranteed to be like the worst.
It almost became me for a while. Yeah. Almost.
At Western, though, at my grad school, I found out when I had to take some poli-sci courses for my American Studies degree, and all of the poli-sci courses that I was in had like a contingent of people who were from the critical theory department, which was just like this small program of master's degrees in critical theory, and they were my They were my family. Because it was just all people who wanted to meme about Zizek and talk about why capitalism is bad.
Love it.
All right. Let's see what we got next. Yeah. There's a big question every high school teacher gets. Is Brave New World or 1984 a more realistic dystopia? Personally, I only think a few privileged people will get the Brave New World dystopia while everyone else will get the 1984 dystopia.
I think I don't know if this is a correct answer, but I think that that question doesn't really matter. Like it doesn't really matter the realism of it. I think the point is that there are supposed to be like heightened extremes of current day anxieties around dystopia, rather than how well can we relate to this. If that makes sense. Like in terms of realism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want to know what dystopia we're getting? It's the Parable of the Sower dystopia. It's the Octavia Butler Earthseed series dystopia. Because basically just what happened there was the government just started cutting back on everything that it did to the point where it barely existed anymore, and like large swaths of the country just had to take care of themselves. That's more of the dystopia we're gonna get.
Yeah, that's definitely the dystopia we're gonna get.
But 1980, like 1984, it's not like I don't think even Orwell was like, this is what it's gonna be like if we don't do something. It's just more about talking about different political aspects, and yeah, as you said, like the sort of like slippery slope we're on, and like what kinds of things can go wrong. This is why, yeah, dystopias aren't supposed to be realistic. They're supposed to extrapolate current problems. Exactly. Yeah, this is why the most insane thing I ever saw on YouTube, the most insane YouTube video I've ever seen, was somebody who was like, all right, guys, it's the lore guy here. Now we're going to break down the lore and show a world map of the 1984 verse. So let's talk about 1984 deep lore. And it's just like, obviously there are 3 countries and they take up this part, and then they had like a map drawn of like where Eurasia and I don't even remember what they were anymore, but like, and I was just like, wow, I don't think I've ever seen anybody miss the point of anything so hard in my life.
Yeah, like that happens. I feel like that happens a lot with dystopias as well. I feel like that also happens sometimes with adaptations. I know it's definitely sort of happening with the Handmaid's Tale adaptation for TV.
Oh yeah, Handmaid's Tale lore videos. You're like, okay, do we need this? Is that what this is about?
Really?
It's not the Lord of the Rings.
That's what I hate about dystopic fiction now, because a lot of times they'll start out with like a nice theme about like where we are in the world and what we need to watch out for and the anxieties we have, and then like 40 minutes into whatever medium this is, it's instantly transported into, okay, map painting.
Yeah.
Lore building, logistics. Is like, no.
It's about abortion. Stop making it about things that aren't abortion.
All abortion. Stop.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, you know who else gets into this in some ways? Sometimes the authors. Like, I was thinking about how... this is the thing that a lot of people don't talk about when they talk about 1984, is that he also kind of bought into his own like deep lore analysis. If you ever read 1984 and you get a version that has the appendices where you find out that George Orwell had an extensive like conlang set up where he had developed most of Newspeak as an actual language. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah. You got real nerdy. I guess that just happens when you spend a lot of time in that world, but yeah. Oh man, lore just drives me insane. Isn't the point of 1984 that we don't know anything reliable outside of London? Yes, exactly.
Well, that's a big part of it. The idea is that like we can't. By the way, we can't have unreliable narrators anymore.
Yeah.
Have you noticed this? This is I'm taking this and jumping into a sideways discussion. No media anymore has unreliable narrators. None. The age of the internet has destroyed the idea of the unreliable narrator, because there's always going to be like 8 like billion YouTubers who will like dig into being like, what does this mean? What does it mean for the lore? Like they'll take it at face value, and then that will become the standard. I
Yeah,
can't think of any media recently that has had an unreliable narrator at all.
yeah. Lore has killed fiction in so many ways. Because like, I also think of like how, like it's basically you can't do metaphor anymore, and like,
Yeah.
well, like you can't talk about The Handmaid's Tale and be like, oh, it's a story about bodily autonomy and like the fragility of all the civil rights that we've won, and then it's like, no, it's about like let's do serious lore analysis to find out about Gilead and their government structure. He's starting at top
Yeah.
10, and it's like,
The history of the wars that they fought, how the logistics of the colonies work. And it's like, no. That's one thing that I really hate about the Handmaid's Tale adaptation. That's like a big part of the Handmaid's Tale is that like women are in this universe so suppressed that they don't have the language or knowledge to describe the world around them, and how that is like a big part of like oppression, right? That's like an element of it. But they can't do that in the adaptation show because they can't not tell the audience certain facts. So they have to give her a name. They have to give her like they have to give her husband a name. They have to give like a history. They have to have like politicians in Canada that like do things in relation like in foreign relations with Gilead and shit. It's like a person who like the metaphor is that she doesn't know any of this thing because she's so oppressed that she's not allowed to know any of any of these things. She doesn't have the language to do it. She's not allowed to the point where she doesn't even have a name. And now and the adaptation just like ignores all of that and just gives you more and more shit so that you can follow along without ever having to question the narrative that you're being given.
yeah. When I heard that The Handmaid's Tale was going to be made into a TV show, I was like, oh, this is going to be a disaster. Because like it is, it's like a lot of The Handmaid's Tale is about like you can't trust the things that people tell you, and like it literally like the spoil. This is like it's not like the hugest spoiler thing, but spoiler for like the novel is that the last chapter explains that the entirety of The Handmaid's Tale is a paper being given by a woman at a history conference about 100 years after the fall of Gilead, and the whole point is that after she gets it and everybody like claps their hands and talks about how evil Gilead was, then the male historians start like doing a sexism at the woman historian, showing that like gender equality has like backslid quite a bit compared to like now, even like 100 years after Gilead, to like say something about the whole thing. It's like.
Uh, the weird show.
Yeah. And then also now I'm like curious about because Margaret Atwood, I guess because of the popularity of the show, wrote a sequel, and I don't know what the sequel for The Handmaid's Tale is like. I haven't read it, but
From the points that because I think I own it somewhere, and I think I've read like a little bit. I never fully got into it. The tiny pieces of what I've been able to do is more lore. It's more lore because the themes are the exact same as the first book, but from like new perspectives, and like it changes the lore from the first book a little bit.
I hope that because like Margaret Atwood's pretty legit, so I'm hoping that there's more to it than that. But like the thing about yeah, like The Handmaid's Tale was. The other thing about the adaptation that I knew was going to be a shit show was that The Handmaid's Tale was an extremely good book at the time it came out in the 1980s, because in the 1980s there was like this legitimate fear that there was going to be this like takeover of America by the religious right and like these Jerry Falwell types. That's why Gilead is like this hyper religious Christian state. But like today, the idea that like the evangelical Christians are going to take over America feels a lot less like a threat and a lot less scary than like if it had been like if they like rejiggered the show. And I know that they couldn't have done it because it would have been way too much to change, and the lore people would be very mad. But if you were to change it so it wasn't like a religious organization, it was like incels and like Proud Boys and stuff like that that were doing the exact same thing to show that you don't actually need religion to do all of this like misogyny. That would have been a lot better, but unfortunate.
It would have taken them a lot of. It would have taken the themes and adapted them rather than taking the like obvious front text of it all, because the themes are just stripped away. Anyway, that's not to say that like lore is bad. I fucking love lore. I fall asleep to Warhammer 40k lore videos.
That's what Warhammer 40k is for. It has no story, only lore, and that's fine. It's designed for that. It's designed to just be an endless. It's designed kind of like the Operation Gladio German board game theory of controlling European imperialism that I have well established on this stream. The busy box theory of Operation Gladio in Europe. But like Warhammer 40k was supposed to be, it was designed by the CIA to keep these lore people from ruining other works of fiction by just going into Warhammer 40k lore.
Exactly. They underestimated the lore, the lore people too much.
The only thing that will ever equivocate to it is Kaiserreich, which is which feels very similar in the exact same way. In the future, there is only in the grim future of the 41st century, there is
only syndicalism.
There is only lore.
Oh, I thought you were gonna make a thing about Kaiserreich.
Oh boy!
In the grim future of the 20th century, there is only syndicalism.
This is true, but like I honestly think that like the kind of like cult following of Kaiserreich exists for the exact same reason that there's like a cult following of like Warhammer 40k fans who have never bought a single overpriced miniature and have never pulled out a ruler to like figure out whether their orc thing explodes a bunch of Tyranids or whatever. When I found out that there are 50, there's the Horus Heresy series that has over 50 novels in it, I was just like, this can't be a thing. This is literally designed to make lore people go insane. This is how I know the CIA made Warhammer, because like it is like weapons grade lore.
It's too well made lore, or like too productive made lore. It's coming fully formed.
Yeah, it's just designed to make lore people get sucked in and never escape. And especially because like it contradicts itself, but it contradicts itself in a way that like it almost makes sense given the unreliable narrator of like the whole lore thing. So it is designed to drive like it's like one of those like Lovecraftian like impossible objects that you're like take over your brain when you find out about them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why that boys and girls and non-binary pals is why the CIA made Warhammer. There we go. We solved it.
The final thing I'm going to say on this is just like this entire conversation proves why Mad Max Fury Road is the best movie.
Yep.
It doesn't have any lore. Well,
no.
it has the very basic foundations of lore, but remember, it's the fourth movie, and it has nothing at all to do with the previous movies. Literally, you would be more confused if you watched the previous movies than if you were watching it blind. It is not connected at all. It has cartoonish villain 1, cartoonish villain 2, and cartoonish villain 3, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. And biker grannies.
And a lot of biker grannies and a lot of fast driving cars. That's all you need to make a good movie.
Yeah. And like how many biker grannies are in Warhammer 40k? None. Well, that might not be true. There's probably a biker granny.
I was about to say, that might actually be true. Might actually be one. But,
I don't know.
But I think a good example of this is because they also made the comic book based on Fury Road, which sucks because that has lore in it and no one gives a shit.
Yeah, no one cares about Morton Joe.
No one cares about like his military career before the movie. Like, who gives a shit?
He's a guy with a mask and a weird plastic, and a weird ultimate symbol of toxic masculinity. The like sculpted plastic chest that makes him look like he's super ripped, but underneath he's just all gross and flabby, like the ultimate toxic masculinity metaphor. And it's just a piece of plastic on his chest. This is why this movie was perfect. It said everything it needed to say and did not need lore videos.
People have tried to make lore videos about it, and it's so fun to see them just like flounder because there's nothing to do. It like, where is it? Australia, maybe.
Yep.
And that's all you have. There's an oil field somewhere.
There's like a lore. There was like, I think it was a Folding Ideas video about lore and the movie Annihilation, which again is another movie that has unreliable narrator, and it's very like, it's got
very good.
The last like maybe like 10 minutes is more metaphorical than literal, but like,
yes.
But the thing is,
a great video, by the way.
Yeah, but the thing is, as you said, in our modern media thing, you can't really have metaphor anymore. Everybody wants everything extremely literal and everything spelled out absolutely perfectly and with enough explanation that they can fill a wikia with it. So yeah.
That's yeah, exactly. There's that video, by the way, is amazing. I think it's called like on the power of metaphor or some shit like that, or the use of metaphor. It's a great video.
Yeah. Matt Pat must be stopped. Yes.
Yes.
In more ways than one, actually.
in several discrete individual ways.
Did I ever tell you that VidCon, he did a panel, I saw this live, he did a panel on thumbnail design, and one of the he was using examples from Mumsnet of, like, good thumbnail design.
What Mumsnet?
Yeah, which is like,
right.
I think it's like Boomer 4chan for British TERFs.
Part of it is that it is also just a mom forum in some respects, but it is also British 4chan. So why?
I don't know.
Why would you do that?
I was like, you must know that this is a controversial site. Why would you put this in your presentation? Could you not find a better example of
thumbnails too? It's just like, it's so weird.
Yeah. But it just shows that Matt Pat has a it seems like in his personal life he has a very unique taste in YouTube videos that he does not make public.
Really? Ooh.
Okay, now we got a next question.
Didn't he meet the Pope and give the Pope like Undertale or some shit?
Yes, he did.
On Steam?
Yep. Gave him a USB key with Undertale on it. And this wasn't even the cool Pope. Was it Pope Francis, or was it like that fucking like what's it called, Emperor Palpatine Pope they had before him?
No, I think it was the cool Pope. Well,
okay. The
cool Pope, I say, by meaning he is one of the less awful popes, which is still super bad.
Yeah. Okay. Next up we got is suppose some kind of disaster destroyed the U.S. state's ability to control the entire country in the early 1990s. The right-wing militias that I've been studying, do you think they would have actually been able to set up some kind of ethno-state in the Northwest if the U.S. state was suddenly gone? Like, how do you think they'd have fared or actually got their wish? It's possible.
Like, if the U.S. government just, like, disappears for some reason.
If the U.S.
it's definitely possible.
Yeah, because, like, I'll get to it in my next video, which should be coming out any day now. But, like, the Pacific Northwest, like, after, especially if this was after Ruby Ridge and Waco, like, there were possibly as many as 2 million militia supporters and about 18,000 militia members, which is more than enough to start a white ethno-state, yes. And there was a targeted project by the white power movement to uproot and move to Idaho, Washington, and Oregon so that when there was any sort of opportunity, they would try and break off from the United States and turn those states into white ethno-states. So, yeah, I think it totally would have happened. Dracula Pope. Yeah, Ratzinger was, oh my god. He was like, I love the church. I love democracy. Like I like he literally looked like he was going to shoot lightning out of his fingers at some points.
Probably could have too.
Can you imagine being such a bad pope that you have to actually resign while alive and be like the first pope to do that in like 400 years or whatever? Because he got outed for basically covering up for all of the, like, child abuse scandals that they were having.
Yeah. God, he's 93 years old. He's still around, by the way.
I wouldn't be surprised. Evil people live forever.
I love looking at people's Wikipedia pages and seeing that they're born in countries that don't exist.
Was he from, like, Czechoslovakia or something?
No, he's from the German Reich.
Oh, fun. Oh, yeah, he was in the Hitler Youth, wasn't he?
Oh, I have no idea about that. Well, he was born not in the Nazi Reich, but in the Weimar Republic, but like still technically what's called the German Reich, which was the official name of Germany at the time.
Mm-hmm.
What did he do? What did he do? Apparently, his family hated Nazis, so that's something. But he was still in the Hitler Youth, but he was conscripted, so that's fun. Learn something new every day.
Yeah. All right. Next up. Once, when I was a kid, I read a fantasy story about a boy who wakes up in an alternate reality where he was born female and has to spend the day like that. If that happened to you when you were a kid, how do you think you would have reacted? I know a lot of trans people, you included, don't realize that they are trans until they're almost adults, if not later. If you didn't realize that you were a trans woman until you were like 18, how do you think you would have reacted if you suddenly woke up in a female body when you were like 8?
Probably would have freaked out, but I don't think I would have minded. Like, I think that would have been one of those moments where it's just like, oh.
Apply spoon to eggshell.
Oh. Yeah, exactly. Like, I when I was 8, I had no idea trans people existed at all. Did not know about the language, had no idea it existed. But if it would have happened, I probably would have been like neat.
Because isn't it like one of those things where it's like you realize it when you're 18, but like you think back and like there was signs.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. As far back as I can remember, like you think that it's like, oh, like I realized at 19, very no, 18 or 19, and at the time I was like, oh, cool. I just realized it just came to me right now, and then like as the years go on, you for some reason like a childhood memory comes in and you realize like, oh, that kid is hella trans.
Now you're like, oh, what's it called? You're going to see like an 8-year-old at the park and be like, that one. Give it 10 years.
Listen, I have a really fucking good trans radar. Like I hate to be this kind of person, and I don't want to do it publicly typically because it promotes like a weird sense where you start speculating about strangers. But everyone does it like in their own private lives, right? You don't do it in public, you don't do it to people's faces, you don't do it because it's assholish to do. But sometimes you have the thought being like that person's gonna come out in 4 years or something like that. And almost every single time that I've done it, I've been correct. There are a significant amount of YouTubers right now who are openly out as trans women, who are, who I'm either friends with or acquaintances with, who long before they came out as trans women, I sat with my friends and just like, trans.
You have a highly refined Egdar.
I have extraordinarily good Egdar. Extraordinarily.
Every Easter, you win all of the hidden egg competitions.
Exactly.
Interesting.
I never do this, and I never speak to anyone about that. I would never actually like tell someone that I think you're trans, because that's worse than that's not how you're supposed to like be supportive if you need it. And it's also just weird and invasive. Like it is an assholey thing to do if you do it, or if you publicly speculate about it. But sometimes I have a thought, and then a few years later, a thing happens, and I'm like, guess I was right.
And it all happened when FaceApp came out.
Was a face app changed lives for a lot of people.
FaceApp made a lot of omelets.
It really did. Christ.
All right. FaceApp only taught me one thing, which is I am my father, and I am destined to become him. Because I aged myself up, and it is just a picture of my father. And the Photos app on my phone thinks that it's my dad from the facial recognition.
Less. That reminds me of when I saw a childhood picture of my dad, and it looks extraordinarily like me. So I'm like 100% certain my dad's my dad. Like they're like, how every kid has a thought like, what if I'm adopted? It's like, no, there's never any doubt.
There you go. You can instead of saying like a radar, you're just Easter champion.
Less.
Okay. Suppose that we abolish the police and replace them with some form of community defense. If we do that, while capitalism exists, won't it mean richer communities have the best defense because they can afford better security measures? Police abolition came up in Ben Burgess's podcast the other day, and he made that argument.
Yeah.
It was in a little-known documentary called The Purge.
Kinda, yeah. Unfortunately, I mean that's basically what gated communities are. Cops don't really go there, and they police themselves.
Yeah, I think there are ways to abolish the police that are not based on like higher. Like I don't think. Like here's the thing: is I don't think the communities actually need armed people watching over them. And if we approach a police abolition with the idea that we still need just like armed people who wander the streets, that's going to be an issue. Yeah, as someone pointed out, that's not abolishing the police, that's just renaming it. What you need to do is take the functions of the police and put them in the hands of people who aren't armed people. That's it.
Yeah. That's a good answer.
All right. Where are we at now? Let's see, how much time we got? We got 12 minutes. Okay, we're good.
Yeah, we got good time.
The other day on Twitter, you, Missing in Action Mulder, said, I do not care for Crowder. Were you trying to subtly make the point that seeing Sam Cedar embarrass Steven Crowder may have been enjoyable for the online left? It's ultimately a meaningless spectacle that serves to distract us from more important stuff. Or did you just post that because Crowder is annoying?
I wish there was a deeper meaning, but it literally just like I just find Crowder annoying at this point. Yeah. And when that whole thing happened with Sam Cedar like ambushing Crowder during the stream, like I tried to like see the stream because I thought it would be funny to watch Crowder get like publicly owned, but I'm just so disinterested. I'm just like I have zero interest in him. Like he's like cave mold to me. It's probably really important. It's pretty gross, but I don't have to think about it. I don't have to be aware of it, and I don't have to.
Yeah, I could not like him, and there's like a bunch of like white dude podcasters that I could not like. I don't like. They all say the exact same shit, and like I cannot tell them apart. Like, I now know Podcast Man. Like, Joe Rogan used to be part of this. But I think one of them is named, like, David Rubin, and the other one's named, and then there's, like, Steven Crowder. And I'm just like, I gun to my head, couldn't tell them apart. And they probably have identical politics, and I don't know anything that is different about them. Yeah, like, although, yeah, though him getting destroyed by Sam Cedar just by showing up was at least very funny. It wasn't big boat stuck levels of fun, but it was just nice to see him just weasel his way out of existence. Like it's just it was very amusing.
Yeah, and like I think that if I hated him more, I probably would have been interested. But I just couldn't care. Honestly, I'm just like very tired of Crowder, and I'm just, yeah, just for my own sake, I've just like put a lot of those like right-wing personalities out of my mind recently,
That's
which
fair.
I think is good for me because
Yeah.
I can't, once I start going down the rabbit hole, I just get angry and frustrated that they have like millions and millions of subscribers and like funding from oil billionaires and shit.
I mean, it was easier to tell which one was which back when they were cartoon animals, but now they're not. Now they have faces, and it's kind of harder to do it.
Yeah.
I'm almost nostalgic for the good old days when the racism came from skeptical squirrel, who was like, you know, DreamWorks eyebrowed squirrel with a top hat that talked about why the NAP is important or something.
Exactly.
All right. This is next up. We got slightly personal question for Mia.
Ooh.
Do you ever feel nostalgic for your cadet days? I'm asking because I had to do conscription in Cyprus, and though I hated it before, during, and after, I do sometimes have some nostalgia for stuff like friends and lack of worry for IRL stuff like bills and rent.
Yeah, 100%. For sure, yeah. Like you described it, yes. That is something that I also get nostalgic for a lot of the time. There is a in my video about why people join the military, I do mention a lot of these things too, where there's a camaraderie that you get there, it's really hard to find elsewhere. There's a simplicity in being told what to do and what to think, that you don't have to, that you know, in the real world, you have to sort of like think for yourself, and I hate that. It's draining and it's anxiety inducing. There's something just secure in not having to be so independent. Um, so there are times where I definitely do miss it, but then the rational part of my brain kicks in, and I realize that it's an awful place. It made me feel like shit.
It doesn't sound like
But
other people who I've known who've done military service of one kind or another have said have said similar things.
mm,
Like you're not alone in
that's like,
this.
what do you say?
You're not alone in this, and I think like it kind of creates like how militaries have like a sort of culture around them.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I also mentioned in my video about the military, that like the military acts as a sort of like separate society that works very different from civil society. Um, and a lot of people find a lot of comfort in that society because it's just very different from mainstream society. Um, and sometimes you gel really well with the military society, in which case you probably gonna like try to make it a career and stay in it. And for some people, it's like an escape. So like they join the military to escape mainstream society, but they don't like gel with that society that much either. So it's like, yeah.
I'm so like if there's one thing that makes me grateful that I live in Canada, it's that I grew up in a country without mandatory military service.
Yeah, we technically have like a light limited draft, but it never actually drafts anyone who doesn't want to join. Um, I joined willingly,
Okay.
because I was just a very different person back when I was 15 years old. Um,
You had
yeah,
to make sure that when the Russians came, you were ready.
yeah, exactly. God, that used to be a thing that I thought about.
I do
Try,
like
try to try to join the navy and look for submarines in the archipelago.
there are no more sad and pathetic people on earth than this like there's this group of people in Canada who are like Canadian geopolitical like people who want like Canada to have like a bigger role in like the military and stuff like that. Like people who
Uh,
want Canada to have like a large military. and do more force projection, because like one of the things happening right now is that because of the Arctic melting, the Northwest Passage is starting to open up, and like Russia is starting to make more and more like ballsy territorial claims over what we consider Canadian water. Because if you look at like Canada's claims over the Arctic, it's absolutely ridiculous. And so like I remember I had this, my nemesis, who I've talked about several times in my stream, used to say that Canada should have a an icebreaker aircraft carrier for the Arctic, so that we can project power against the Russians. And I was just like, you know who like operates in the Arctic? Russia and the United States. Do you really think that Canada's ever going to be in a position where we're going to have anything meaningful to do against these two countries? Like, bruh. Us, like, I just, yeah, Canada being a, like, Canada has, geopolitically, its entire strategy is diplomacy. We are a middle power. And
a secondary power, as
yeah,
as Victoria II would say.
Yeah, and firmly, our security is based on the fact that we have made strategic alliances with all of the major powers. The idea of us, like, even, like, we already field the 19th largest military on Earth for a country of 37 million people, which is ridiculous. We spend way too much on the military. And, like, yeah, like, I don't understand people who think that Canada, like, there's also, like, there was, like, a Canadian, like, Canadian conservatives also were trying to field, like, you remember Matt Iglesias made that book, 1 Billion Americans?
Yes.
So there was this group of like really weird conservatives here that wanted to get Canada to 100 million people by like just like mass controlled immigration to like the empty parts of the country. And it's like okay, so it's just like you want to send everybody to like the fucking gulags of like northern Saskatchewan. Like,
wonderful.
yeah. Oh man. So that's fun stuff. But I just love Canada being like every time when a Canadian politician or something tries to like make us think that we're like a great power when we are like just absolutely like we are completely nothing on the world stage. We are a non-thought. Nobody cares about us. We do not do anything of importance.
Same.
Yeah. I mean, Sweden's sort of like, you at least have like, we're neutral.
That's true. We do. We are what the Social Democrats would have said in the decades past, the humanitarian superpower.
Yeah. While Canada is just like, basically we just, suck up to every major power and hope that they like us. While nobody thinks about us. Yeah.
And we hide from every major power and hope no one thinks about us. Same result.
Yeah, they wanted to put 10 million people in Yellowknife, which Yellowknife is a city. Let me just see what like their historical weather is like.
They currently have a population of 20,000, by the way.
Yeah. And also it gets as cold as -50 in the wintertime. Because it's in the Arctic. And also, Yellowknife, like the Northwest Territories, is... Oh, man. Like, it's literally, like, it's in the middle of nowhere. It's like, the Northwest Territories is just scattered mines. In, like, just the inhospitable wasteland that is, like, it's, it's... Like, there's maybe, like, I think there's, like, a small indigenous, like, Inuit population, but most of them live in Nunavut, so I don't know. It's just, it's like, oh, God. Come on.
Looking at pictures, and it looks very much like Sweden. This place is just like my hometown.
Yellowknife?
albeit a bit colder. Yeah, yeah.
Well, it is 2 o'clock, so
Oh shit! Isn't it? Yeah. Oh
yeah,
damn.
we're gonna have to call it a day today, friends. We're gonna
I
we're gonna.
can't dab. I just realized. Fuck. Oh.
Ooh, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good. I just like twisted my arm in a weird way. Oh.
Okay. But first, before we do this, can you tell everybody where Mia content lives?
You can find Mia content on miamulder.com. It'll take you to my YouTube channel. You can also go to twitter.com/potatopolitics, or you can find Leechfest wherever you get your podcasts if you want to listen to my medical history podcast, which is fun. Um, what else? We're currently recording an episode on space medicine, which is pretty cool, and the space program and a bunch of like medical issues they had to deal with before they could go to space.
Ooh,
Um,
there's another. That's a topic that has some secret Nazis.
I was yeah yes it does. It has a bunch of secret Nazis, and I'm so glad that you said that because I'm when I wrote the script for that episode, I was just like, am I stretching too much by including Nazis here? Nah.
No,
There's also like the Japanese Unit 731 in there as well.
yeah,
Like we're
what's
getting
it
a
called?
lot of weird doctors.
Yeah, like the number two most high profile Nazi after Werner von Braun was somebody who did a bunch of space medicine stuff. So yeah.
Exactly. I'm so happy you know that. That's so cool. And you can also find yeah, that's probably it for me actually.
Uh,
Twitter, YouTube, podcast. Yeah, that's good.
and you guys, I will be around tomorrow night, so be sure to get on top of that. Uh, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, stay cool because it's hot, and yeah,
It's bad.
chill. Peace.